Hi everyone. A thin mist hung over a quiet village nestled at the foot of the Caucasus Mountains in Dagestan. The morning air bit into the bones, and the distant cawing of ravens echoed eerily, like a whispered warning of something unnatural about to unfold. At the heart of the village stood an ancient mosque long forgotten by time, Juma al-Qadam Mosque. A modest stone structure over 7 centuries old. Its walls were cracked and its ceiling nearly collapsed. The village elders often spoke of hidden sanctity buried beneath its foundation, but the younger generation dismissed it as just another inherited myth. Until that morning, everything changed. The local government had finally approved a full renovation project. Construction teams arrived with heavy machinery, and work began on digging up the foundation. But then something strange happened. The machine halted abruptly, refusing to move. The operator, Pavel, jumped out and pointed at the ground. A series of unusual cracks had formed in the earth, not random but in a perfect circle. Cold air swirled from the center, unnaturally frigid, as if it came from a world deep below. This isn't just unstable ground. It feels like something is trying to get out, Pavel muttered, barely audible. The chief engineer called in the local archaeology team. As they dug deeper, wet soil fell away to reveal a massive stone slab, unlike anything in the region. It was covered in strange inscriptions. Not Cyrillic, not Arabic, and unrecognizable by any scanning software. And then something even stranger happened. One of the workers, reaching out to touch the stone, suddenly collapsed. He fell unconscious, eyes wide open, his lips moving silently, as if reciting something in a forgotten tongue. His pulse was steady, but he remained unresponsive for over 2 hours. Panic spread. Villagers gathered. An old man, Haji Abdul Rahman, respected, quiet, and nearly blind, shuffled forward with a pale face. "I warned you long ago," he rasped. "This mosque was built on sacred land, but no one listened. And now, you've awakened its guardian." The archaeologists, despite their nerves, decided to proceed. The stone slab was not just a barrier, it was a seal. When they finally lifted it, a strange scent rose from the earth. Not foul, not fragrant, but something that made the hair on everyone's arms stand up. Beneath the seal was a descending stone corridor, leading deep into the earth. The walls were carved with glowing symbols, strange glyphs that shimmered faintly, as if alive in the dark. At the far end, a massive bronze door stood tall, etched with a sun and moon emblem entwined within a circle. The air was cold, too cold. Everyone's breath became visible, and their footsteps echoed like whispers of time. Just above the bronze door, ancient writing flickered to life. And in the final moment before the chapter ends, a voice emerged from the depths of the tunnel, soft but commanding, not human. La ilaha illa. Pavel froze. The archaeologists turned to one another, their faces drained of color. And one question now echoed in all their minds. What exactly is buried beneath this old mosque? Step by cautious step, they descended into the dark, cold corridor carved beneath the mosque. The archaeologists' headlamps flickered, casting dancing shadows on the ancient stone walls. No one spoke. The air felt heavier with every breath, thick with something old, something watching. The passage was narrow, only one person could walk at a time. The damp scent of ancient soil and rusted metal filled their nostrils. The walls were lined with symbols, circles within stars, all-seeing eyes, and sharp markings that looked like ancient prayers or forbidden mantras. Halfway down, Irina's headlamp died. She froze. Panicked, she quickly switched it back on. But it wasn't the darkness that startled her. It was what she saw when the light flickered back to life. She stood frozen, her eyes wide, There was someone standing ahead of us, she whispered, her voice shaking. He was dressed like someone from thousands of years ago, but then he vanished. The team halted. Pavel moved toward her, trying to calm her down, but she was visibly shaken. I swear. He looked straight into my eyes, and he said, "The time has come." The tension climbed, but there was no turning back. At the end of the tunnel, they reached the massive bronze door, nearly 3 meters tall. Its carvings were intricate, far more delicate than anything above ground. In the center of the door was a symbol of the sun and moon intertwined in a single circle. Above it, faintly glowing in a script no modern language could claim, a message appeared. But somehow, everyone understood it, not by reading but by feeling, as if the words were whispered into their minds. Here rests the one taken to the heavens, returned to witness the lost. Enter only if your heart is pure. Pavel tried to push the door, but it wouldn't budge. Dr. Alexei noticed a set of carved mechanisms on the side, a kind of ancient puzzle involving stars and the solstice calendar. Took hours to decipher, but finally, they cracked it. As the door groaned open, a deep metallic rumble echoed like a voice that had not spoken for thousands of years. Inside, they stepped into a massive circular chamber, softly illuminated by a mysterious source of light with no origin. In the center stood a great black stone sarcophagus, glimmering with a polished sheen. It was surrounded by 4 crystalline pillars, each shaped like angelic wings. Upon the tombstone, a cryptic message was engraved. A servant raised before the collapse, returned before the awakening. My name is known to 3 peoples, but my secret is guarded by the heavens. Dr. Alexei read it again, and his face went pale. This may not be a myth, he stammered. This could be the resting place of one of the great prophets. Before anyone could react, Pavel suddenly dropped to his knees, too close to the tomb. His eyes stared straight up at the ceiling, his voice not his own. He will come, but before that, the ruler of this world must witness the truth. The lights flickered, the earth trembled, not violently, but subtly, like something ancient stretching in its sleep. Far from that tunnel, across the mountains, inside the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin shot upright from his bed, gasping for breath. Sweat clung to his skin. His heart thundered in his chest. He had seen the same vision again, and this time, he heard a voice, clear, undeniable. Come to Dagestan. They have awakened the light. The night sky over Moscow was different. Winds swept in from the south, carrying with them a strange scent, faint but undeniable. The kind of scent that stirred memories long buried and whispered of something ancient awakening. Inside the Kremlin, President Vladimir Putin stood silently by the window of his private office, staring at the stars, or rather, the absence of them. The skies were unusually dark, starless, almost like a veil had been drawn across the heavens. He hadn't slept for days. It wasn't the pressures of politics or the rumblings of war. No, it was the dreams. Each night, the same dream haunted him. He walked alone across a vast desert, no landmarks, no end. A single voice, gentle yet overwhelmingly powerful, called out to him in a language he couldn't name, but somehow understood. Come to the land where the light lies buried. They have awakened the eternal witness. The heavens have waited, and you, Vladimir, have been chosen to see. He would always wake up drenched in sweat, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He tried to ignore it. First, he told himself it was stress, a symptom of exhaustion. But the dreams returned, again and again, more vivid each time. And with each dream, the line between reality and vision blurred. On the fifth night, something changed. He awoke to find a strange file sitting on his desk. One he hadn't seen before, one not brought by any aid or security protocol. Plain folder, sealed in wax. Inside, a classified archaeological report from Dagestan, marked Top Secret for the President's eyes only. He read with growing disbelief. A chamber found beneath a centuries-old mosque. Inscriptions referring to a servant raised to the heavens. A tomb unlike any ever discovered. At the bottom of the final page, written in longhand, "We don't believe this is just a historical site. There is something here, something watching. We request your direct authorization to continue." Putin sat in silence. Then he reached for the intercom. "Prepare the presidential aircraft. Destination, Dagestan. Only a small team. Absolute secrecy," he ordered, voice calm but resolute. His aide hesitated. "Mr. President, may I ask, does this concern national security?" Putin turned toward him slowly, eyes hard but distant. "No," he replied. "It concerns the truth." The presidential helicopter soared over the snow-dusted mountains of Dagestan. Below them, valleys swirled in fog. The wind howled like a living thing. Beside Putin sat Sheikh Isov, a humble, aged scholar of religion and hidden knowledge. "Do you know why I brought you with me?" Putin asked, eyes still on the clouds. Sheikh Isov gave a small nod. "Because your soul is troubled, and because the place we are going is not just a ruin." Putin said nothing more. As the helicopter touched down near the mosque, a select group of guards, engineers, and scholars waited. No media, no ceremony, only urgency. They guided him through the excavation site, past the broken stones, down into the cold, echoing corridor. He reached the bronze door, and the moment he stepped into the chamber, the air changed. It became electric, heavy, sacred. Every breath felt like an echo of something divine. He walked alone toward the massive black tomb at the center. And then, the inscriptions lit up, not with any light seen before, but with an inner radiance, as if the letters were made of stars. Everyone around him gasped and stepped back, but Putin kept walking. Sheikh Isov fell to his knees, whispering prayers. Tears welled in his eyes. "He knows you are here." Putin reached the tomb. His hand trembled, his breathing slowed, and in that moment he knelt, for reasons he could not explain. His knees met the sacred ground, and a voice, not his own, spoke through him. "There is no God but God." The room froze, every soul held its breath. "And Muhammad is his messenger." Putin whispered the words again, firmer, clearer. "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." The crystalline pillars surrounding the tomb began to glow. The ceiling trembled ever so slightly. Soft orbs of light fell from the sky above the chamber like illuminated rain. Some wept, others fell to their knees. Putin simply sat in silence, not as a president, not as a man of power, but as a human being who had finally found what he didn't even know he was searching for. The news traveled faster than anyone could have anticipated. The world was on edge, on the brink of understanding a truth it had never been prepared to face. Vladimir Putin, the man who had long navigated Russia's political chessboard with a cold, calculated hand, was now caught in a spiritual awakening that the world would not ignore. His moment of conversion at the ancient mosque in Dagestan wasn't just a personal shift. It had become a global event. Television stations, news agencies, and social media outlets scrambled to report on the stunning footage leaked from the Kremlin's private channels. The image of Putin kneeling at the tomb, speaking the words of the Shahada, circulated across the globe like wildfire. Headlines screamed in every language. Russian president converts to Islam after mysterious discovery in Dagestan. Vladimir Putin's spiritual revelation. A new age for Russia? World leaders awakening. What's hidden beneath the mosque? Governments, scholars, and religious leaders reacted almost immediately, each one scrambling to understand the deeper implications of what had just occurred. Inside the Kremlin, the atmosphere was tense. Putin, however, remained unusually calm. He had always been a master of controlling his image, but this was different. It was not about power nor about politics. This was something far greater, something that transcended his role as president. He had become a symbol of something unseen, an ambassador between worlds, the secular world of politics and the spiritual realm of ancient truths. But while the president himself wrestled with this newfound faith, his advisors and officials were unsure how to move forward. Maxim Orlov, the head of Russia's intelligence, was among the first to express concern. "The world is watching, Vladimir," Orlov warned, his voice tense. "They don't understand what you've just done. The geopolitical consequences could be..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Immense." Putin looked out the window, his gaze distant. "Sometimes, Maxim, the world needs to be shaken. People need to see things they can't ignore. Only then will they find the truth." Orlov frowned but said nothing more. There was no arguing with a man who had seen everything through the lens of power. Yet now, it seemed Putin was speaking a different language, one not of strategy or influence, but of something beyond this world. The response from world leaders was swift and mixed. The United States issued a statement that was, at first, cautious. "We respect the spiritual journey of President Putin, but advise caution in the wake of his recent revelations. Russia's actions will be closely monitored." Meanwhile, European leaders were stunned, some offering their congratulations, others deeply concerned about the possible ramifications on Russia's internal stability. But the true firestorm came from the Middle East. In Saudi Arabia, the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman, sent a formal message of congratulation to Putin, praising him for embracing Islam. However, there was an underlying unease in the tone of the message, as Saudi officials knew that Russia's sudden turn towards Islam could shift the delicate balance of power in the region. "May your faith bring peace and guidance," King Salman wrote. "But remember, the Ummah's unity is sacred. The balance of power in the Islamic world is fragile." In Turkey, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who had long maintained a close relationship with Putin, expressed his support. "History is filled with moments of great transformation," Erdogan said in a televised statement. "And this could very well be one of those moments." But not all reactions were positive. Israel's government issued a statement questioning the authenticity of Putin's conversion, suggesting it might be a political maneuver. Many in the West, too, expressed doubt, questioning whether this was part of a larger strategy for regional dominance. Meanwhile, Iran, the largest Shia-majority nation in the Middle East, issued a mixed statement. On one hand, they welcomed the conversion, citing shared beliefs, but on the other hand, they emphasized the divisions between the Sunni and Shia branches of Islam and cautioned Putin to tread carefully. But it wasn't just political leaders who reacted. Religious scholars around the world were quick to weigh in, some claiming that Putin's words were a sign of prophecy fulfilled, while others feared that his sudden embrace of Islam could signal the rise of a new religious war. As the media frenzy continued, the tomb beneath the mosque became a place of pilgrimage. Thousands, from all over the world, arrived in Dagestan, hoping to glimpse the site where the leader of one of the world's most powerful nations had undergone his moment of spiritual rebirth. But this wasn't just about one man's conversion. There was something more at play. The tomb, the cryptic inscriptions, and the ancient energy surrounding the discovery seemed to be pointing towards something far greater. a cosmic event that transcended the borders of nations and religions. Dr. Alexey Ivanovich, the lead archaeologist who had discovered the tomb, was now an international figure. In interviews, he spoke cautiously, aware of the delicate nature of the situation. The tomb is not just a historical site, he explained in a press conference. It is a message that was left for humanity to decipher. And that message is not yet fully understood. He paused, his eyes narrowing as he spoke the next words slowly. The time is coming, and we are only at the beginning. Putin sat alone that evening in his private chambers, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. The world had seen his conversion, but there was still so much that remained hidden, so much he himself did not yet fully understand. Outside the Kremlin, the first signs of a storm were beginning to gather. The world was changing, and the winds were shifting. The question was no longer whether the world was ready for this change, but how long it could deny the truth buried beneath the surface. As the moon rose high over Moscow, Vladimir Putin closed his eyes, feeling the stillness of the moment, the weight of his decision, the spiritual journey he had undertaken, settled within him. He no longer saw himself merely as the leader of Russia. He was a witness, and soon the world would have to confront the revelation he had just begun to embrace. The world had already changed, but no one could fully understand the depth of that change yet. The air was thick with anticipation, a sense of impending truth hanging over every nation, every people, and every leader. The revelation in Dagestan wasn't just an isolated event, it was a global awakening. As the days passed, the world's eyes remained fixed on Russia. The tomb beneath the mosque became a holy site. Pilgrims from across the globe of all faiths gathered in Dagestan, each searching for their own answers. But it wasn't just faith that brought them. It was the question that lingered on the edge of every tongue. What was hidden beneath that tomb? Vladimir Putin had long been a master of control, his every move calculated, his words measured. But in the days following his conversion, the weight of his newfound spirituality shifted him. The spiritual journey he had unknowingly begun had become his greatest trial. It was no longer just about Russia or even his personal faith. He had become an unwitting key to a larger mystery, one whose consequences stretched far beyond his country. He sat in the Kremlin, staring at the walls of his private office. The haunting, recurring dreams had stopped, replaced by a sense of stillness. But the world outside had not ceased its restlessness. Questions mounted. The ancient tomb was not just an archaeological discovery. It was the fulcrum of something far more profound. And then the message came. A courier entered with a sealed letter, one marked in ancient script, the same script that had appeared on the tomb. Putin's hands shook as he opened the envelope. Inside, written in his own handwriting, was a single line. "The light will soon reveal what was lost. Prepare the world for what must come." He sat still, the meaning of the message sinking in. The truth, he realized, wasn't just about religion. It was about something much deeper. The tomb was not just a sacred site. It was the gateway to something forgotten, something lost to the ages. The tomb wasn't merely a burial site. It was the guardian of a secret that had been hidden from the world for millennia. Meanwhile, global tensions were rising. The world's leaders convened in a series of secret meetings. United Nations representatives, heads of states, military leaders, and spiritual figures, each grappling with the implications of the discovery in Dagestan. In Washington, President Eleanor Harper gathered her most trusted advisors. She sat in silence, processing the information that had come from Russia. "This isn't just about Putin's conversion," Harper said, her voice grave. "It's about what's buried beneath that mosque. What's underneath there is far older than anything we know, older than civilization itself." If Putin is right, she trailed off, and her chief of staff, David Moretti, spoke up. If Putin is right, then the discovery in Dagestan could change everything. The implications for religion, politics, and history, it's as though the very foundation of our world is built on lies. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, religious leaders convened in secret, weighing the meaning of the discovery. There was talk of ancient texts, of prophecies foretelling the rise of a leader who would bridge the worlds of the sacred and the worldly. The Vatican, too, took action. The Pope called for prayers across all of Christendom. The secretive order of the Holy See was tasked with studying the symbols and inscriptions on the tomb. Perhaps they could uncover the key to understanding what had happened to Putin and what lay hidden beneath the earth. But it wasn't just governments and religions that were affected. The scientific community erupted in debate. Archaeologists and historians scrambled to assess the discovery, with some hailing it as the most important find of the century. Others feared that the tomb's significance could lead to chaos, forcing humanity to confront a truth too massive to comprehend. Back in Dagestan, the site of the mosque was no longer just a place of worship. It had become a global center of pilgrimage. Tens of thousands of people, believers, scholars, seekers, gathered daily to witness the tomb and the supernatural phenomenon surrounding it. The tomb, as Dr. Alexey Ivanovich had predicted, had begun to reveal more than just ancient truths. It was revealing visions. Strange, cryptic images appeared in the night sky, seemingly aligning with the tomb's inscriptions. Shadows danced on the walls, and figures appeared in the haze, as though the past itself was awakening. And then, one night, a figure, an ancient man in robes, eyes glowing with an ethereal light, appeared in the chamber where Putin had knelt. The vision was witnessed by thousands, transmitted live across the globe. The figure spoke, not in words, but in symbols, etched into the very air. And when those symbols were deciphered, they revealed a message for all of humanity. The light will rise again, the truth shall be made known, and the world shall witness the return of what was lost. It was a prophecy, a revelation. The world, now aware of the tomb and its power, had no choice but to confront the truth. The light that had been hidden beneath the mosque was not just a symbol of spiritual enlightenment. It was the knowledge, the truth of humanity's origins, of the ancient bonds between the heavens and the earth, of a forgotten universal truth that had once guided civilizations. And now, as Putin had become its unwitting herald, the world would be forced to decide how to handle this new knowledge. Vladimir Putin stood alone in the chamber beneath the mosque, staring at the glowing symbols that danced across the walls. The air hummed with energy, something ancient, something powerful. He had never felt more alive, more connected to the pulse of the earth and the cosmos. He was no longer just a man or a leader. He was a witness, and in that moment he knew the world was about to enter a new age. An age where truth would no longer be hidden, where the divine and the earthly would merge. He looked up toward the sky, where the moon hung in silence. The light that had been hidden beneath the mosque had begun to rise, and the truth it carried would change everything. The light of the tomb continued to shine across the world, and nations scrambled to understand what they had uncovered. But one thing was certain: the world would never be the same again. The secret of the tomb, the ancient knowledge, the awakening, it was only the beginning. The revelation was upon humanity.